You are not lazy, you are not broken, and no, you don't need more willpower. And if you have tried productivity hack, morning routines, and dopamine detoxes, but you still cannot focus, there is a reason. Your brain has been rewired quietly and repeatedly, and almost no one's talking about what's really doing it. It's not your phone, it's not TikTok, it's not even video games. It goes even deeper than that, bro. This one habit is hijacking your dopamine system every single day, making deep focus feel impossible. And once you understand how it works, you will stop blaming yourself and you will finally take control over yourself again. Because this is the only solution that actually exists and that actually works. Let me ask you something, my friend. How often do you find yourself scrolling aimlessly, opening a new tab mindlessly, or watching something you told yourself you'd quit? Bro, you tell yourself that it is only going to be for 5 minutes, but then an hour later, you are still doing it, and your brain feels fried, it feels fatigued and lethargic. It's like you can't even focus even if you tried your best. Bro, that is not a dopamine problem. That is not a focus problem or a discipline problem. This is a problem of dopamine fatigue. And it's coming from a source no one wants to talk about. But I will. So, bro, let me show you what it is. Because once I cut this one thing out, I have gained the ability to focus even without using discipline or willpower. And let me show you what it is. First, you have to fix your focus, not your discipline. What do I mean by this? Because most people think that they need to fix their self discipline before they can fix their focus. But that is backward. What you actually need to do is fix your focus. Then self discipline will follow. Because the first principle, the first basic of using self discipline is to use self discipline to stay in track in motion, as in staying consistent in one action. Which think of in a racetrack, you want the car to stay on the track. If it's deviate from the track, then you will lose the race. You will lose the competition, and it could lead to accident as well. That is what it is. Staying motion in a track, maintaining your motion in a track. But how are you going to get on the track first? Which track are you on? Which race are you going to be participating in? Do you understand what I'm getting at, bro? What you have to understand is that you have to focus first. You have to determine where you are going to focus, what goals are you trying to achieve, and where you want to focus. You have to determine that first, and then you have to start focusing on that task, start working on that task by focusing on it. And then you have to use your discipline after you have started focusing to maintain your focus. So you don't improve your self discipline first, you improve your focus so that you can use self discipline to maintain that focus, and that's how you inevitably improve your self discipline. So if you think that you have to develop your self discipline before you can improve your focus, that is not going to work, because you have to fix your focus first, bro. You have to understand that. And the core of this concept is, bro, you have to understand that no matter how disciplined you are, if you feel distracted, if you cannot focus, the highest amount of self discipline in the world cannot even help you. Because if you're not going to focus, you're not going to be able to focus, you are not going to be able to work, achieve anything meaningful, achieve any real goals. So to achieve any real goals, you have to start and learn how to focus first. You have to focus, and you have to improve your focus, and you have to learn how to not get yourself distracted by the mundane things of real world or the distraction that is in your phone, video games, and addiction like porn, etc. That's what you have to learn first, and then you have to use the power of focus and apply discipline on it to achieve your goals. Daily consistent output that you have to do to achieve the goal that you have to achieve. Because achieving your goals requires long term action, because any meaningful goal is actually long term, which means you have to consistently output a lot of hard work every single day, daily, for 3, 6, or even 12 months, or even longer than that, depending on the stage of your life. It could be exam 1 to 2 months from now, or 3 months from now, or could be a business that you want to set up by these 6 months or 12 months. but everything requires daily consistent action, whichever goal you have in life. Bro, but how are you going to achieve your goals if you cannot even focus properly? Tell me, bro. I'm not talking about rocket science here, bro. Am I? If you cannot focus properly, no matter how you are going to drill self discipline into your head, you will still not going to be able to produce meaningful hard work, meaningful output that is actually going to give you the result that you want. So you need to improve your focus first so that you can improve your discipline. Bro, try to understand this topic like this. You are trying to run a high performance software on a broken circuit, on a fried circuit that is not going to work well, my friend. You and I both know that's not how you're going to achieve optimal results. Bro, let me tell you something about myself. I used to believe in this backward thing that I have to improve my self discipline and then I can focus even more. But that was backward thinking and it set me back even more. Because I didn't realize that I have to focus first. I have to start focusing first and then I have to discipline. I have to use discipline to maintain that focus. And I have to use willpower to resist distractions. I did not understand that, which is why I keep blaming my discipline. And I keep telling myself I'm not disciplined enough. But the truth was that I wasn't focused enough. I wasn't focusing on what I have to do to achieve the goal that I want to achieve. Educational goals, business goals, and other goals. I had to just focus and put in the minimum viable action that is going to get me at least the minimum viable result. And I can build on top of that. But I didn't focus. And I keep blaming that I don't have enough self discipline or I don't have enough willpower. But the reality is that the more I focus, the more I'll have the chance to improve my skill of self discipline, improve my willpower, and resistance to distraction. I fail to understand that, which is why I fail to execute my plans. I fail to execute my plans every single time, bro. And this is the real reason. I used to go back to procrastination in no time. Well, there are issues of addiction which leads to procrastination, but we're going to discuss that in later segments, in later chapter of the video, not now. Bro, trust me, it's not that I am lazy or I wanted to be lazy. I am actually a very high ambitious man who puts very really big goals on myself. I want to achieve really big goals, and every single time I set a goal, I try to set the highest amount of the goal that I can achieve, or not even I can achieve, the highest I can possibly think of. But the problem is that I was forcing discipline on a broken system. So even though my ambitions were really high, as sky high, you can say, trying to touch the moon, but my action was lacking. And it was lacking because my focus was lacking. I had to focus. I had to focus on my goal. I had to focus on the minimum viable action that I have to do. Daily consistent action that is required to achieve the goal that I want to achieve. That is where the real problem was. Because if I started to focus, I would have put in at least minimum daily consistent action, and that minimum daily consistent action would have taken me somewhere. It would have led me to a minimum viable of success. It wouldn't have been totally zero. At least I would have moved on with something positive instead of wasting my entire time in procrastination, video games, addiction, etc. Bro, so don't waste your potential and blaming your self discipline and willpower. Focus on focus. No pun intended. That is the actual point of the video. Bro, you cannot blame self discipline and your willpower. You have to learn that you have to focus first so that you can achieve the goal that you want to achieve. Bro, you have to understand that if this keeps happening to you and you are stuck in a loop, it's not your fault. But there is a reason it keeps happening. And let me explain to you what the reason is. But for me to really explain what it is, I have to tell you something about brain's reward system. How our brain engage with reward. You have to understand this so that you understand how this system works so that you can use it to your own advantage. But I will try to explain to you in a very simple manner because I know as a medical student we overcomplicate things sometimes, and that is going to harm your understanding instead of helping you. So I will try to make it as simple as possible for you. So what is happening is that your brain reward system is hijacked and overstimulated by all the cheap dopamine activity that you are doing, like social media, porn, video games, etc. And what I mean by cheap dopamine is that you are not working that hard to achieve this dopamine. Your brain is getting overstimulated with pleasure for not doing much of anything at all, without doing any meaningful hard work, purposeful action, or anything like that. Because dopamine is just dopamine. But cheap dopamine is just getting dopamine for not doing anything beneficiary to you at all, or to the society or your community. You are getting a lot of pleasure without providing value for anybody anywhere. And that is problematic. That is problematic for your own psychology. Even if other people do not see this as a problem, or they don't care about what you are doing with your life, this is still damaging your psychology. The problem is that social media, reels, Instagram shorts, all of these tabs, all of this avenue are fighting for your attention, and that is where the real problem lies. And bro, this is the reason your dopamine receptor are so fucked up. Bro, because think about it. When your brain gets flooded by dopamine, cheap dopamine basically, because of watching reels or YouTube endless YouTube videos, what is happening is that your brain keeps releasing dopamine in your system. And your receptor cannot handle this much dopamine, the endless flood of dopamine. So what happens is that your receptors start numbing themselves so that they don't receive that much dopamine because it will harm your receptor. So it starts numbing your dopamine receptors. What happens is that inevitably your receptor gets numb and you don't get as much pleasure for engaging this activity anymore. So every time you engage with this activity, your baseline dopamine gets lower. Baseline is the normal amount that is going to stay in your system if you didn't know. So your baseline is the balance. It's the pleasure pain balance. If you get too much pleasure, your pain goes up to maintain the balance, equal and opposite reaction. If your pain goes up and pleasure goes down, it will also bring the balance. Your brain is always trying to maintain balance, trying to maintain homeostasis, as we say it physiologically. But what happens when you give your brain too much pleasure? Too much pleasure by playing video games or scrolling on social media, watching endless funny YouTube videos, brain rot videos. Your brain gets numb and your brain dopamine receptor gets fried, so your baseline gets down. And even though you are still releasing the same amount of dopamine, your brain is not receiving all this dopamine, so you feel depression and anxious, you feel bad, you don't feel like you are getting as much pleasure for doing the same thing again and again, which is harming you, which is making you feel depressed and anxious. Bro, you have to understand this. Every time you go after the heat of this quick bit of novelty, your baseline for stimulation gets higher. But your baseline keeps getting lower and lower and lower. So your ability to perceive relative pleasure is going down. And your brain stimulation is going up. So you are getting flooded with way more dopamine in your system, but you are not feeling as much pleasure as at all. Because you are in this loop of addiction, loop of dopamine hits, which is making your brain overcompensate for for which is making your brain overcompensate for this flood of cheap dopamine, which is making your brain feel less and less pleasure over time. So you are feeling more depression and anxious. Not only that, you are feeling even more bored than you would have felt if you didn't engage in this activity, because it is increasing your stimulation and it is lowering your baseline, which is making you feel even more bored than you would normally feel in normal mundane day-to-day activity, because you wouldn't feel this much bored if you weren't addicted to this addiction. So you have to learn to stay in the boredom and enjoy the boredom again. Bro, what happens when your baseline gets lowered? You feel unmotivated to do any work. It makes you feel tired all the time. You are feel unmotivated to work. You don't feel like you have any energy at all. You feel like lethargic and fatigue all the time. And it's all because the dopamine in your system is very low, as in your brain is not receiving as much dopamine as it would have if your baseline was normal. It has fallen so low that your body is not engaging with your dopamine anymore. Bro, so then what happens when you sit down to do the real work? It feels boring, it feels uninteresting, you don't feel motivated to do anything. You don't want to achieve the goals. You actually do want to achieve the goal, but you don't feel like you want to do the work that you need to do to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. Bro, and that is called dopamine fatigue. And you didn't choose it. This internet world is designed this way to keep you consuming, consuming, and consuming without producing of anything of benefit. They are all fighting for your attention. And so you have to understand what you are giving your attention to. Is it helping you? Is it adding value to your life, or are you just wasting your time and giving somebody else your attention and time for nothing in return? Be aware of this and be careful of who has your attention. Be careful of who where you are wasting your time at. Are you learning something? Are this knowledge helping you? Is this actually beneficial to your future self? What are you doing? Why are you on YouTube? Why are you on the internet? What is the goal of this? It is just about addiction and to give your brain dopamine hit again and again and again with one after other novel videos with novel ideas? Or are you here to actually consume content that is intentionally helping your future self? You have to think about this, bro. Seriously. But, bro, there is one habit that is even more dangerous than TikTok because it spikes your dopamine even more than TikTok. And this one is even more dangerous than you think. Bro, you have to understand this. Porn overstimulates your brain even more than any social media could ever do. Let me tell you something, my friend. Porn hijacks your brain. Extreme novelty, intense stimulation, and fake reward. Let me tell you something, my friend. Porn hijacks your brain to dopamine reward system by extreme novelty, intense stimulation, and fake rewards that you didn't achieve, that you didn't deserve to achieve because you didn't put any work toward it. What do you think happens when you engage with this activity repeatedly again and again and again? When you keep watching porn months after months, keep edging and gooning and engaging in PMO, what happens? What do you think happens? Bro, over time, it numbs your brain from focus, real life efforts, and real life pleasure. And that is exactly why focusing in this modern world feels like a war. And that's why you feel drained, fatigued, and tired and lethargic all the time. Even when you are not doing anything, even when you haven't done anything the whole day, you still feel lethargic, fatigued, and you feel like you are very tired. Because it's all in the psychology, it's all in the brain, it's in the neurophysiology. Your dopamine system is fried and it's extremely overstimulated, which is why you feel like this, bro. And you have to understand that. And you have to understand that you have to break the cycle of this addiction if you really want to achieve the high feeling of life that you are missing. Because before you engage in this addiction, life was beautiful. You had fun and pleasure in just existing, and boredom wasn't really boring. There is some silent pleasure in boredom as well, and you felt that, you knew that, but you have lost it now, and that is because of this addiction. And you know that, bro, and I know that you feel it in yourself as well. But this is not just about quitting porn, bro, because that is where most people go wrong. Because you have to understand something, my friend. You are not just addicted to porn, you are actually addicted to a psychological trap, and porn is just a piece of the puzzle of this trap. And bro, that's what I break down in my last video. In this video, I discuss why the real reason quitting feels really hard and the actual reason why you are addicted. And I discuss about the psychological trap that I talked about right now. So click here to watch that video. Click now, click, 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 click. It connects everything we talked about today and gives you a deeper solution. So click now, click, 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 click.